But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. Philippians 4, verse 19. God can never be short of supplies. The entire earth and all that is in it belongs to him. Psalms 24, verse 1. The earth is the Lord's, and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein. The fact that we are in need does not imply that God has run out of supplies. Sometimes, God creates needs in our lives so that we come to him. There would never be any time that God would go bankrupt. Heaven's economy can never experience a meltdown. Be as it may, God's supply can never cease. This is the advantage of the kingdom citizens. We have a bank in heaven that can never fail. Its supplies are constant. Deuteronomy 8, verses 1 to 5. Every commandment which I command you today, you must be careful to observe, that you may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land of which the Lord swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. You should know in your heart that as a man chastens his son, so the Lord your God chastens you. The fact that you are in need does not prove that God has exhausted his supplies. No. Sometimes we go through hard times for God to test our obedience and for him to show us his glory. The reason the children of Israel had to suffer hunger for a while in the wilderness was for them to know that there is a God who can supply their needs. If they had gotten manna the first day, they would not have appreciated it the way they did later. Our obedience to God is also tested in our times of need. So many believers only profess to love God with their mouths, but hard times have proven their love for God to be false and based on the supplies they had previously received from him. Yes, God can provide for our needs, but he wants to know whether our love for him is unconditional. The devil argued that the reason Job was faithful to God was that God gave him all that he needed and protected him from all evil. So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now, stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." Job 1, verses 9 to 11. God knew that the devil's assertions were false and baseless, but he still exposed Job to the destructive force of the devil. Despite the fact that Job lost all that he had, he loved God still, because his love for God was not based on what he had. Sometimes the hardness we feel could be because of an ongoing argument in heaven about our loyalty and love to God. We need to learn to draw closer to God in hard times so that his glory might be revealed in us. There is such a thing as divine provision, and it will be great if all believers would get the revelation of that reality. God can supernaturally bless a man and mysteriously supply his needs. A very good example in the Bible of such a man who received God's supernatural blessing was Obed-Edom. Prior to that time, Uzzah had died because he tried to rescue the Ark of the Covenant from falling, and David was scared of bringing the Ark to Jerusalem, so he ordered that it be kept in the house of Obed-Edom. In 3 months, God blessed Obed-Edom to the point that he was noised abroad. Second Book of Samuel, chapter 6, verses 9 to 12. David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, "How can the ark of the Lord come to me?" So David would not move the ark of the Lord with him into the city of David. But David took it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. Now it was told King David, saying, "The Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him, because of the ark of God." So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with gladness. The Bible didn't tell us how God blessed Obed-Edom or what sort of work he did in 3 months. All we know about him is that his story changed in no time. The revelation of God's ability to meet a man's need was shown to Abraham in Genesis 22, verse 13, when God provided a sacrificial lamb in place of Isaac. It was this provisional dimension of God which Abraham saw that made him to name God as Jehovah-Jireh, Genesis 22, verse 14. And Abraham called the name of the place, "The Lord will provide." As it is said to this day, "In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided." The word Jehovah-Jireh in Hebrew means Jehovah will see to it. The Lord will see to your needs if you trust him and call to him for help. He is the ever-present help in times of need. Psalms 46, verse 1. Each time you are in need, don't be too overwhelmed by your worries to forget how God had met your needs at previous times. The problem with many of us is that we often allow the memories of God's faithfulness over our past needs to fade away just because we have a new demand. If God has ever met your needs, then he can do that again. Always learn to appreciate God for what he has done in times past. When you appreciate God for past provisions, you are simply invoking his provisional power for the present need. Manna has and will never finish from heaven. God can rain manna again for your sake through other methods. God does not want us to murmur against him when we are in need, as is the custom of many. Rather, he would have us pray to him for our supplies. Jesus taught us to pray to God for our daily bread, and he warned us not to be overly conscious of what we need for life as to be worried about them, thereby robbing ourselves of the joy that we are entitled to possess. Casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. 1 Peter 5, verse 7. Deuteronomy 8, verses 18 to 20. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. Then it shall be, if you by any means forget the Lord your God, and follow other gods, and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that you shall surely perish. As the nations which the Lord destroys before you, so you shall perish, because you would not be obedient to the voice of the Lord your God.